Hello, everyone. McGinn here speaking. I set a goal for myself over the weekend, and that goal was that I wanted to investigate screen capture software so that I could create for you guys like a demo or a walkthrough or some kind of thing that you guys would be able to see kind of how the what, how, why chart works in class. One of the reasons for this is that the what, how, why chart is never going away. We're going to use it basically all semester. And we're going to use it with different things. We just happen to be using it with ethos, pathos, and logos and types of evidence this time, but later we'll use it to, find irony, foreshadowing, all kinds of things that the author does in the text, right? So in front of me is the argument for tuition-free college. And basically, you guys read this in class, I don't know, last week and or the week before. I don't even remember. But this is something that we could break down using the what, how, why chart. So I'm going to just select a piece of evidence from here. This looks like a good one. And I'm going to copy that. I'm going to move it over to the chart here. So at the top here, it says what? This is the evidence itself, right? So we could say something like, in the text, the author states, comma, quotation mark. We paste that in there, end quote, paragraph. Whoa, that's messed up. Paragraph, let's just say 8. I don't know. I wasn't paying attention, so I'm going to lie. Paragraph 8, right? And like I said, 95% of students do the what section pretty well. And the thing to note here is that you want to have really strong evidence that you talk about. Like, you don't want to use weak evidence or evidence that doesn't prove the claim as something that you're going to talk about in this chart, right? That would be the only reason that you would not score well in this column here. Okay, moving on. The how, or the ethos, pathos, and logos of it, and what type of evidence. So we could say this is a scenario, right? And it is painted by the author using logos, not capital, logos, right? So we said this is logos and this is a scenario. It's logos because it's an if-then sort of critical thinking situation. So if you go to school, you acquire debt. If you acquire debt, that may prevent you from doing things like buying a house, right? Because that's what this quote's about. Okay. So we've got this, we got this. And again, students tend to do pretty well here as long as they've memorized the vocabulary or whatever it is that we're looking for in class, right? Now, and most of you guys did pretty well right here anyway. My big concern is the why section. Now, you need 3 things in here. 1, what is the author claiming? 2, how does the audience respond to this or perceive it? Or what is the impact on the audience, right? And then lastly, like, how does this fit the bigger picture, such as your essay or tuition in America or, the articles that we've read, all right? So we could kind of begin this process by talking about the author and the claim and the evidence, right? So the author creates a scenario, scenario in which students graduate with crippling debt and are unable to do things that many non-grads can do, such as buy a home, right? So we've sort of talked about the evidence, and we've talked about what the author is saying. You always want to kind of summarize your evidence, or at least speak to the evidence that you're using, right? So this scenario proves the author's claim because the audience would, I don't want to say it that way. This scenario creates a situation in which the audience can not help but to agree with the author because without tuition free education, what not we, but what America is doing is crippling the graduates so badly that they can't attain the dream for which they probably went to school, right? I gotta clean that up. Cannot should be cannot, right? Non-grads is probably hyphenated. Okay, cool. So now I've talked about the audience. I've talked about the claim. What I really need to talk about is like, what does this mean for like a bigger picture? You know, maybe what does this mean for America? So, in a country of how should we say this? Of supposed opportunity and equality, it is wrong to allow for a system that inundates or cripples. I just don't want to use cripples again. That inundates graduates with debt that they may never pay off. Now, I want to talk about something else to make this even stronger, but this likely creates a poor economy because anyone with debt knows that well, let's stay formal. One cannot make many new and important purchases with debt, right? So I talk about what this means to America. I talk about what this means, for the economy. I talk about the author and their claim, and then I also talk about how the audience responds to this. Now, if you did really well on the test, you're like, no dumb again, like I already know how to do this chart. But here's the cool thing. So if I take this middle column, this left column, and then this right column, I can actually just create a paragraph. So I copy this here. I'll just bump it down here. Then I copy this here. I bump it down here. And then I copy this here. And I bump it down here. Okay? Dang, wow, that looks like a paragraph. No kidding, it does, because you just did all the thought on your evidence, right? So some things need to be changed, though. If I look at this part, for instance, I wouldn't just start a paragraph by saying this is a scenario and it is painted by the author using logos. First of all, what scenario? I haven't even begun to talk about the evidence. I could say something like this, though. The author creates a scenario in which students are riddled with debt after college, and the author appeals to the audience in this scenario using logos, right? Except no two periods, and this is a coordinating conjunction, so that needs a comma, right? My very next sentence here is, in the text, the author states, comma, quotation mark. We just talked about the quote, so it would make sense to actually cite the quote, right? So then we have our quote down to paragraph 8, and then we say, the author creates a scenario in which the students graduate with crippling debt and are unable to do things that many non-grads can do, such as buy a home. Probably I would change this so that crippling was a different word, and so that this doesn't sound so repetitive. But essentially, I go on to explain the claim, the audience reaction, and why does this matter? Or like, what's the big picture? Now, this is especially important because if you guys get really good at using this chart, it formats your thoughts for you. And if I were talking about the same concept as this is talking about, I could just take another piece of evidence, cite it in that order, middle column, left column, right column, and just beef this paragraph up more, right? To the point where this might even take like a page, but it would be a page of really good thought. One thing is that this part is all my voice, and that's really what I'm looking for from you guys, is that I see some of your voice. I don't want to just see formatted paragraphs that don't say much about you, right? Or that don't have much of your own thought in there. So this is kind of the what, how, why chart, how to use it. This may not be the best worded sort of answer right here because obviously I'm doing this on the fly really quickly. Now, if this were a test, I'd go through and I'd probably rephrase this, look at better ways to use, grammar and so on and so forth. Hopefully you guys found this tutorial helpful. And if you have any further questions, I'd be glad to demonstrate in class any of this information. If you need extra help, be sure that you see me after school. Be sure that you're asking your peers for help. And I hope that you guys can do well this year with this chart, successful and happy with your grades. Thank you, I guess. I have to figure out how to turn this thing off. Oh, all right, right here. All right, thanks, guys. Bye. Have a good weekend.